to those in Greater China, including our panelists. Thank you for joining our webinar today. This event is hosted by the Committee of 100, a nonpartisan leadership organization of prominent Chinese Americans across business, government, academia, and the arts. I'm Eric Zheng, Greater China Regional Chair of the Committee of 100. C100 has two missions. First one is to promote the full participation of all Chinese Americans in American society and acting as a public policy resource for the Chinese American community. And second is to advance constructive dialogue and relationships between the peoples of the United States and Greater China. Our discussion today centers on our second mission, specifically on American higher education in China. This is the first installment of a series that we are planning to focus on highlighting American businesses and institutions operating in Greater China. Since China's opening up in the late 1970s, American universities have attracted millions of Chinese students to study there. I myself was among the first wave of students from China to study in the US. Over the past years, American universities have also established their operations in China, either through joint degree programs or through joint universities. They are playing an increasingly important role in educating Chinese students in China. Our webinar today, American Higher Education in China, Opportunities and Challenges, will focus on this latter aspect of American higher education. It will be a dialogue between myself and the officials from two iconic educational institutions in China, namely New York University in Shanghai and Schwarzman College of Tsinghua University. Both schools represent important cooperation between American and Chinese universities in providing world-class education to Chinese students in China. You'll hear firsthand perspectives from two officials on running American affiliated schools in China. Of course, we'll reserve some time at the end to take a few questions from the audience. You could ask questions in our Q&A part of today's webinar. With that, let's get started. First, a very brief introduction to our two very distinguished guests. Jeff Lehman is the inaugural Vice Chancellor of NYU Shanghai, the first Sino-American joint university. Jeff was previously president of Cornell University, dean of University of Michigan Law School, and founder of the Peking University School of Transnational Law. Jeff has also been a tenured professor of law and public policy, a practicing lawyer, and a law clerk to Associate Justice John Paul Stevens of the US Supreme Court. Jeff also currently serves as chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. Jeff has received many prestigious awards. I'll just cite one of them as a highlight. In 2018, China named him as one of the 40 most influential foreign experts during the country's 40-year period of reform and opening up. Our second guest is Professor David Pan, Executive Dean of Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University. Professor Pan's career has crossed over entrepreneurship and academics. Prior to Tsinghua University, he worked in the IT industry for a decade, serving respectively as an engineer, director of an R&D, VP, CEO, chairman of 4 different companies. From 2004 to 2014, Professor Pan served as director of Development Office, School of Economics and Management at Tsinghua University. He was in charge of activities of school's advisory board, which consists of top executives from some of the world's largest corporations, as well as top Chinese officials. Since 2013, Professor Pan has served first as executive director of the Schwarzman Scholars Program, and then the executive dean of Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University. with that introduction, let's get started with our panel discussion. First, for both of you, Jeff and Professor Pan, maybe just for each of you to give our audience a very brief introduction to your respective schools. Why don't we start with Jeff?
Well, we are, as you indicated, the first Sino-American joint university. We were created in 2012 as a partnership among East China Normal University, New York University, the city of Shanghai, and the district of Pudong. We started teaching in 2013, so we're finishing our 8th year of teaching. We have a broad range of subjects that we cover at both the undergraduate and graduate level. We actually awarded our first PhD just a couple of months ago. In a normal year now, at the undergraduate level, we have a total of about 2,000 undergraduates, about 500 per year. Half come from China, half come from about 80 different countries around the world. During the first 2 years, the students take a core curriculum with us, taught in English. During junior year, they study away at other NYU campuses around the world, but they're replaced by visiting students who come to Shanghai from NYU's other degree granting campuses in New York and Abu Dhabi. In a normal year, we also have about 350 graduate students, master students mostly, and that number is growing every year. I just note that this year has been a little different. In addition to our normal group of about 2,300 students, we have an extra 2,300 undergraduate and an extra 700 graduate students who would normally be studying at NYU in New York or NYU Abu Dhabi, but haven't been able to get into those countries. So we brought them into the NYU Shanghai community as members of what we call our Go Local program. So I'll stop there.
That's great. Professor Pan.
Good morning, good evening. Thank you, Eric. This is David, and I'm in the office in Beijing. And so Schwarzman College founded April 21st, 2013. So 8 years passed, and we had over 600 alumni, and each year we have 150 students around the whole world. So 20% from China, 40% from the US, and 40% from the rest of the world. And so, the 8 years ago, when we founded in People's Great Hall, and the President Xi Jinping and the former President Obama sent the greeting letters. And 5 years ago, so when we have our first cohort, and the President Xi Jinping and the President Obama sent another greeting letters again. So, two presidents from both US and China send greeting letters to one school twice. Never happened in the world. So what that means? That means US-China relationship are so important in the future. So we're cultivating future leaders. Hopefully, all of them can make their contributions to both sides and global relations. So that's the mission of Schwarzman College, and we wish and we can achieve that mission. So thank you so much, and hopefully everyone or anyone can recommend any talent to apply our program. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Back to Jeff. Maybe I know NYU has campuses in several countries. Could you share with us why China? You decided to set up a campus in China.
Well, NYU had its first study away site for students to leave New York for a semester in Madrid. It was set up in the 1940s. And over the next several decades, the next half century really, it continued to add study away sites for 50 or 100 students in places like London and Paris and Sydney and around the world. Then shortly in the early 2000s, the university decided to think differently about what kind of a university it would be. Instead of being, as it had always been since 1831, the University of New York, where people would come to New York and it might reach out from New York, it decided to rethink itself to try to become a global network. It would think of itself as a university that links important cities, gateway cities from around the world to each other in a network. And it would use that network to encourage students and faculty to circulate, not just to think of New York as a hub and to go out and come back, go out and come back, but to really move comfortably from city to city around the world. And so the first city where it decided to create a true degree granting campus, a real node on this network that would be like New York, a place where people enter, was Abu Dhabi. And it was thinking, okay, that now extends NYU from being just the University of New York, but it doesn't really feel like a global network yet. And then the question is, well, how do we really become a global network? And Shanghai is the obvious city to do that. When you have 3 degree granting campuses in New York and Shanghai and Abu Dhabi, and people can enter through any of these 3 portals and then circulate, the whole identity of the university shifts. So it's been great for this project of NYU in changing its self-understanding to have a full degree granting university here.
That's great. Let me come back to David. Certainly the name Schwarzman is known around the world. And certainly, as you just mentioned, both governments, US and China, place importance to this program, Schwarzman scholars. Maybe just tell our audience a little bit about what the mandate is. I know it's not a undergraduate program, and you really try to train leaders for the world, so to speak. So maybe share with us a little bit about the mandate, the objectives of your program.
Yeah, so by the way, you know, every year we have students, I mean, they graduate from undergraduate and from New York, NYU Shanghai, and every year. So that, yeah, last cohort we have 3 from Shanghai. You know, we only have 30 Chinese students, but 10% from NYU Shanghai. So you see,
that's great. So NYU Shanghai is a feeder school for Schwarzman College.
Exactly. That's how we like to think of ourselves. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you. Keep doing. Thank you. And
Thank you.
So thanks. And answer your question, Eric. You know, the leaders is hardly to train, right? So the older leaders like you, like Jeffrey, so and our audience, you are leaders, but you are not trained by school, so you train by yourself. And we just try to provide a platform. So that platform, 3 things. The first one, they can learn each other, and from all of the world, and we pick up the scholars, very picky, and it's like 3 or 4% the rate for admission, and so they can learn each other, and so that's the first platform. The second, you know, our professors from all over the world, the Tsinghua, other schools in China, and all of the schools around the world, from Latin America, from Europe, Africa, and from the US. So the students can learn from our professors, mentors, and from you, from our the leaders in this meeting. And the third is, that platform is for the a dialogue. So we have a lot of lectures, we have a lot of forums and conferences and in different topics. So from that conferences and forums, the students can learn from outside of the classroom, outside of campus. So we have done that, and hopefully we can get our scholars to understand what's going on in today's world. So that's what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Both of you actually mentioned that your schools train, educate not only Chinese students, but also international students, including students from the US. Maybe both of you could talk about that aspect, having students both from China and around the world in the same classroom. Can we start from Jeff?
Sure. I mean, I think part of the conceptualization of NYU Shanghai, similar to Schwarzman College, and we were started almost at the same time, was a deep belief that the world has shifted from the time when we were students. And so when we were students, most people expected they would lead their lives interacting almost exclusively with people from their own country. And today, we work and live really in multicultural communities. And that meant that to be effective in today's world, you need to be effective working together in partnership with people who grew up in different cultures and different countries. And so we were designed from the beginning to provide every one of our students that kind of multicultural experience. Since half our students are from China and half are from the rest of the world, and we assign roommates in the dorms, that means every student has a roommate from another country. And then beyond that, we're constantly impressing upon them the importance of spending at least 2 hours every day in serious conversation with someone who grew up in a different country. And that way they start to understand that, this core principle of cosmopolitanism, that we're all people, we have these universal values that we all share, um, respect and love and wanting to avoid pain and all of those things. But different cultures express those values in different ways. And so what could be respectful in one country, in one culture, would be insulting in another culture. And so by coming to understand that and appreciate that reality, our students become much more able to work as members of multicultural teams and to be effective members or leaders of such teams. So that, most universities around the world, they're at least 70% of the students are from one country, the home country. We're quite different. The largest group at NYU Shanghai is only 50% of the class. Schwarzman, even fewer. And NYU Abu Dhabi is even fewer. But I think I know beyond those three institutions, I don't know of any institution where the dominant group is less than 70% or 75%. And that creates a dynamic where there is a host culture and visitors. And we try to break that down. We try to really have a truly cosmopolitan community.
Well, that's fascinating. David, from your standpoint, maybe address the same topic.
Yeah, here it is similar to what Jeff said. It's almost exactly same. And but the another one thing I want to mention, when the students from all of the world and come here, I think so far we have around over 85 countries and from different backgrounds. And so when they come here, we have one class we call the deep dive, and there's a credit class, and they all the students together go to different cities, different places, countryside, rural areas, and they stay there for 7 days. And some group and they went there and with our mayors or the governors. So they work with them for 7 days, from morning, like now, from morning until the midnight, because the Chinese government officials work so hard, and they experience what's going on here in China very deep. So that's why we call it deep dive. Through that program, through that the class, the students can make very close each other. They live together, not in the classroom, not in the building, then in the anywhere in China. So that's make their close friend understanding each other and understanding China as well. So make their very close friend for their probably lifetime friend. And some students, they even have a boyfriend, girlfriend from that's the program. So that's the practice. So that's very close. So the important thing is key thing is they understand more deeply each other. So thanks.
That's great. When you run a school that combines different cultures in pedagogy, academic research, and student bodies and so forth, are there any challenges, dynamics that you could share with us? Maybe back to David first.
Yes, a lot of the interesting things, and even some difficult uh, opinions or questions. But all the students are very happy to involve, and also our professors, our mentors are very happy to uh, interact with our students, because for me, I learned a lot from our students as well. So even a lot of hard questions, but students try to overcome that's a hard time. Give you an example, maybe not politically correct. When the election happened in the U.S., our scholars years ago, right? It's a long time ago, we can say, and our scholars cried overnight. So we have to try to make them comfortable and try to that's our scholars see the future and move forward. It's a little bit hard, right? So they really cry, and but they learned, we learned. So it's a lot of things like this, but our scholars really enjoy that when they look at back. So I think that's our school life. So thank you.
Jeff.
Yes, I guess I can offer one example of how we have to adjust our pedagogy to these multicultural classes. So especially in first year, when the students arrive fresh out of high school, um, they've been taught different norms about how you're supposed to be in class, how you're supposed to interact with the teacher. And so if a teacher asks a question to the class, American students are taught that it is impolite to let the question just sit there and the classroom to be quiet. They're taught that it's embarrassing for the professor. And so to show respect for the professor, they are supposed to try to answer. They're supposed to, raise their hand or sometimes even just respond so that there's not this awkward silence. Our Chinese students are taught that when a question is asked, it's impolite to push yourself ahead of your classmates. You're supposed to hold back and allow your classmates to speak first. So if you have a classroom that is composed of, let's leave out the other 79 countries, and let's just say it's American students and Chinese students, and the professor tosses out a question, and everyone is trying to be polite, what you have is a bunch of American students talking, and a bunch of Chinese students not talking, and that's not good. That's not what you want. So as teachers, we have to rethink our approach to interacting with the class. Instead of just tossing a question out like that and waiting to see who responds, we call on students by name. And we will then randomize, who we're calling on, so we get a good distribution of people who are answering our questions. Now, that can be scary for students at first. It does mean they're well prepared when they come to class, but it is a response, a pedagogic response to the phenomenon I was talking about before, where different cultures teach respectful behavior in different ways. Each one makes sense, but they lead to poor interactions if we don't react.
Great. David alluded to geopolitics earlier. So a question about U.S.-China relations, any impact they may have on your programs. I know over the past 4 years, a lot has happened. So maybe each of you could address that. Are there any impact at all on your programs, different different governments in the U.S., starting maybe from Jeff?
Yeah, well, I think ironically, and let's just focus on the let's say the last 2.5 years, as we moved from trade tensions into COVID-19. I think that time has actually brought our school a lot more positive attention and appreciation on both sides of the Pacific. We're defined as a bridge, as an experiment in serious cosmopolitanism that is in part intended to demonstrate the importance both to individual students and to humanity as a whole of cooperation among people who grew up in different cultures, as I was saying before. I think geopolitics and COVID have disrupted everybody's sense that the world was just automatically going to keep getting flatter and flatter. Nobody takes that kind of progress for granted anymore. So a lot of people from both the public and private sectors who do share our values suddenly became worried that there weren't enough institutions like ours. And so they stepped forward over the last couple of years to help ensure that we can keep doing what we do. Having said that, I would say sort of psychologically, the members of our community have felt lonelier because it seems less likely that there will be new institutions like ours until these issues resolve, which I expect they will. But I think we're in for a pause, I guess I would say.
David? from your standpoint? I know your supporters include actually many well-known U.S. corporations, and in this age of geopolitics, are you what's your perception of any impact U.S.-China relations on your program going forward?
In the last years, and we from the honeymoon to today, right? So it's tough. And at the beginning, is everyone celebrated. So there's now also the U.S.-China the good relationship, and also and there's a lot of students from U.S. from other countries to China. But two things actually. The first is U.S.-China relationship that is really affecting our program. But this may be not bad thing. Why? Because that means we do need both sides understanding each other, starting from our young kids. So that's more important for our program. So I try to tell all the sponsors, all the sponsors and our stakeholders and all the students. So today is a good time to understand each other. No more like before. There's a lot of things happen between the U.S. and China. I think the first thing, both sides should understand each other more, understanding their position. I mean, see fit their shoes or not. And so our program's mission is for the future. So that's the young generation should understand starting today. And even so like Eric mentioned, so we went to the U.S. for the study, even that. So we need understand more. So for the young kids, absolutely yes. So the first one. The second, COVID-19 is really gets some impacts, get some influence for our program, because we the students only can study online for over a year, and if you cannot come to China, you only study online. So that's we cannot taste the China. So that's the whole program's mission, or whole program's design will reduce a lot. So that's really have an impact. But COVID will be gone. So whatever, sooner or later will be gone. So we feel very very optimistic. So hopefully everything back to normal, and U.S.-China relationship as well. Thanks.
COVID-19 is obviously a huge challenge for everybody, including educational institutions like NYU Shanghai and Schwarzman College at Tsinghua. Can we just maybe talk a little bit about what you've done in terms of dealing with this pandemic, starting with Jeff?
Yeah, well, it's been more than a year since the outbreak in Wuhan. And so last spring semester, we started the semester fully online with our students distributed around China and around the world. When things were brought under control here in China, we were able to do a responsible reopening in late April, where students who were in China could come back and get back into the classroom, but our international students were stuck outside. But that began our experiment in what we call mixed mode teaching. Over the summer, we were able to bring our international faculty back. About half of our international students came back. And so we were able to reconstitute an international community, but we still were in mixed mode. And all this year we've been in mixed mode. We've had half of our international students still outside of China joining in class remotely. 3/4 of the students in the class are in every class are in the classroom, and 1/4 are on Zoom. And so the dynamics are challenging, but I think we've all learned a lot as teachers. We've had to figure out new tricks for how to make the it's easy to talk to this way, one to one. What's trickier is to get a real group discussion going. In some ways, it's easier when everybody's remote, but we figured out ways to use the technology so that we can have a group discussion among students who are both in the class and remotely. But it's been work, and I think we're all looking forward, hopefully, to next year when everybody, we hope, will be back. We want everybody to be back this fall. We want our student Taylor, who is stuck in Sydney, Australia, and is graduating next month, to be able to start at Schwarzman this fall. So,
David, how about
Yeah.
Schwarzman College in terms of dealing with the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, so that's really hard. I never met that before in our life. And so a year ago, so we started the semester, the spring semester last year, and we settled all the equipment and everything for online. And thank technology, so we can do that, right? So like today, and there's everything so far goes very smoothly. And even sometimes, the students get more gathering together because they are boring, right? So they stay at home and they cannot do anything, and they have a lot of meetings online and talk even more than before. But they want to see face to face. So, and we have a lot of challenges because, as I mentioned, so they cannot taste the China, they cannot taste the Chinese food, and that's not good. But they will eventually they will come back. And for other things, we planned a lot of events and more lectures and even counseling for their working and also for their daily life, for their life. So so far it's okay, and hopefully we can open pretty soon. But we worried if we will open too late and they they adopted for this situation. That's not good. So we hopefully we hope back to normal life. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, last question from me before we go to our audience for Q&A. So David, maybe tell us a little bit about your future plans for Schwarzman College at Tsinghua, your vision for the future of your school.
Yeah, so we went through 8 years and still the startup, right? So we have a lot of things to do, and several things we need to kind of improve. Answer Erica's question. So first, we have our own building on campus on Tsinghua. So we want our students more interactively talk to other schools and also other schools in Tsinghua on campus, and can more communicate with us, and they can do a lot of things together, like sports, like music. So that's we try to do, because Schwarzman College, if you here I invite everyone to visit, and we have a dining hall, we have the dorm, we have a classroom, everything, and even the gym. So they don't need to go outside of the college. So that's good. Sometimes it's good thing, but it's not good thing, and they kind of excellence from other schools. So we try to act with other schools. The first thing, and another, it's learned each other from other schools. And another one is now we have 150 scholars, and hopefully the max is 200. And we want to our program more diversified from not only from some kind of the background and the major, and we want to any major, any kind of the backgrounds students talents can apply. And for the long term, we try to uh, not only for the teaching platform, try to build up more influential platform for the dialogues, conferences, and use that platform for benefit of other fields and other uh, communities. Thank you.
Great. Jeff?
Yeah, so the Pudong district is building a larger campus for us that we'll be moving into next year. We're very excited about that. In terms of our scale, our undergraduate program has reached steady state now. We're up to 500 students per entering class, and that's where we will stop. Our graduate programs are continuing to grow. So we're adding now somewhat aggressively, in addition to the PhD program, more master's programs. So I think we're up to 5. We're going to jump to 8 next year. We'll I don't know where steady state will be on master's students, but probably between 1,000 and 2,000 master's students. We're also adding more in the way of partnerships with other academic institutions, governments around China to create special research opportunities for faculty, members of our community. We recruit tenured and tenure track faculty from all around the world. It's a very slow and painstaking process, these global searches. We're up to 80 tenured and tenure track faculty across all disciplines. We will continue to add between 10 and 15 new tenured and tenure track faculty until we get to around 140. So we're still going in all of those ways. So we're not a newborn anymore. We're not an infant, but we're not a grown up yet either.
Great. Jeff and David, thank you for your dialogue with me. And we've got many questions actually coming in for both of you. One of them actually is a retired professor from Duke Kunshan University. And he did ask, we should suggest that we should include Duke. By the way, we did approach Al Bloom, who is a friend of Jeff. Actually, Al was with NYU in Abu Dhabi, I understand. So, but Mr. Bloom is not available today, but we'll definitely try to include him or NYU Kunshan, Duke Kunshan in our future programs. So there are many good joint programs, universities in China. Certainly, I don't think we've talked enough about their presence in China. So I'm very happy to highlight 2 programs in NYU Shanghai and Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University. Let me maybe just ask on behalf of the audience a few questions. The first one says, how does your program, the first one is, how does your program institution make an impact beyond the confines of the campus community? What is the wider impact of NYU Shanghai Schwarzman College? Any examples? Anybody? Feel free.
Well, we think of ourselves, I guess, as a kind of a demonstration project. We are an experiment. We're a different kind of education from traditional education at Chinese universities, a different kind of education from other parts of NYU. We are more focused on effectiveness in multicultural environments. We're more focused on nurturing creativity than traditional academic programs, just because, as is often said, this is the the century of innovation, and we need to nurture our students' capacities to innovate. And so we do these things, we try them. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And we keep going, and then we do things like this and talk about them. And so our others are in fact emulating, adapting things that we do to their circumstances and their context. So I think we're happy to be under the microscope, and we're happy for others to sort of study us like lab animals, and see if there are things that we're doing that might be of value to them.
David.
Yes, before like 8 years ago, and the Tsinghua, there's a very hard to pronounce it. And the Peking University, NYU Shanghai, Duke, and this Duke and the Nanjing, there's the people can easily make a pronunciation, right? But Tsinghua is a little bit hard for the foreigners, and now is they can learn how to make a pronunciation. Why? Because they know Schwarzman College at the Tsinghua University. They have to say that together, and so that's the first good things benefit for the Tsinghua, and make Tsinghua more the norm in the world, seriously. And so that's the first thing. That means we have a lot of recognition in the world globally, and so that's very good. And another thing is, as Jeff mentioned, so we try to do some kind of the reform from teaching, from recruitment. So like a recruitment, our scholars, they don't need to get the national exam, and for the master's degree, and for their study. And we have a lot of classes. It's not only in the classroom, as I mentioned. So that's also be credit from a university, from a Ministry of Education. And another thing, like professors, all the classes not like before. Is the traditional like one class or one professors. Like we have a lot of classes, so we have 2 professors or even more. So like professors from China, professors from US, from professors from Latin America, and they together teach in one class from a different perspective, different opinions, different view, and make students widely open their mind. So this we have done lots of things, kind of the not the pioneer, but we try to do some improvement, it's a reform. So thank you. Back to Eric.
David, just to follow up on that question. So you, the Schwarzman College actually aims to train for the society and scholars. Could you maybe describe to us what a typical Schwarzman scholar is like? What is the objective of this training for leaders for our society?
So that's a little bit of a tough question, because leaders cannot be trained, and but we try. And so that's when we pick up our scholars, and so that's like the NYU Shanghai, Duke, Nanjing Center, John Hopkins, all the programs, because of the different criteria. For the Chinese, we have a different standard. For the overseas students, even for the Chinese, but they get studied overseas, there's different standards, different criteria to pick up the students or select the students. So that is a little bit hard, but we organize our interviewers, and so they very professional, and very they have a very sharp the mind, and also they have in Chinese we say they have the sharp eyes to pick up our scholars. We always say, so if you pick up the cat, and it's only small cat, right? So whatever you fit is the good thing, whatever the food, big cat. But if you pick up the tiger, it's the you don't need to feed them well, but they still can growing very big. So that means there's pick up the students and select students. Recruitment admission is so important. This is that is the first thing answer your question. The second, we cannot give them skills for our students, but we want them have an open mind, open heart, and compassion and integrity. So such kind of that things we try to our scholars catch up, and so try to get our scholars know their responsibilities for the future. So that's we are trying to do, but I know it's not good enough. So we have to do more.
We have a question for Jeff from our audience. What pedagogical approaches did NYU Shanghai faculty practice to help the Chinese students join academic discourses and debates of all sorts in and outside the classroom? Jeff.
Well, I think, from the beginning, one of the questions that everybody has before coming to a school like NYU Shanghai is, what are the norms? What are the norms of discussion? Is there academic freedom? Are there topics that are politically incorrect? Are there things I'm allowed to talk about, not allowed to talk about? Are there ways that I'm allowed to talk and not allowed to talk? How will my classmates treat me? And I think this is a topic, and I see it came up in some of the other questions as well. It's a natural question to ask, and during orientation, we spend a lot of time with our students and our faculty talking about this. When NYU Shanghai was created as a Sino-American joint university, almost everything was going to be a kind of an innovation. Our students graduate with 2 diplomas, one that is approved by the Middle States Association in Pennsylvania and is awarded by the trustees of NYU, and one that is approved by China's Ministry of Education and is awarded by Shanghai New Daxue. And so, one of the key features, defining features of the NYU Shanghai experiment has been the fact that our students are all part of NYU's global network, are educated with the same kind of pedagogy, the same kind of academic freedom as students in other parts of the network. NYU is committed to academic freedom, to intellectual inquiry, to challenging the conventional wisdom. That's part of what innovation is about. That's how you nurture creativity. So it's opposed to silencing community members, or what's sometimes called canceling them because they've said something that's unpopular with their classmates or faculty. And so that was part of the structure of NYU Shanghai from the beginning. It was guaranteed by the government. And throughout our 8 years of teaching, the government has honored that promise so that we could operate in this way. Back in 2016, Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey called me in to testify, and he expressed doubts that this was really true. So we invited him to come out and see for himself. He did, and he went back a believer that this is, in fact, how we operate. As I said, I think the increase in U.S.-China tensions over the past 5 years has probably put a hold on the creation of new ventures like this, but it hasn't at all inhibited our ability to do what we were established to do.
Thank you, Jeff. We probably have time for a final question. With all the challenges that seem to be facing both countries today, education has always been seen as a common bridge. But it seems that some professors and students in each country are being looked at suspiciously for a variety of reasons. how do we overcome these challenges of what seem to be xenophobia? Maybe David first.
Yeah, so it's really the problems we are facing, and so there's outside the environment. So we should say there's like a U.S.-China relationship, and also pandemic, and a lot of not so good enough environment, and make up both professors and students more challenge for them. And so that's for sure. And so how can we deal with this? For the Schwarzman College and for Tsinghua, we still open for our side. So we still open everything for the outside. So we try to recruit some more students from the US, from the rest of the world. And also we try to not only tell, we try to communicate with all the communities, like our stakeholders, our alumni, and also a lot of our the future, like a future candidates, and to communicate with them for what? For this temporary situation. So the whatever is will going down a little bit, but will bounce back for the future. So we try to see the world will be the optimistic in the future for everyone. And so that's the first thing we try to do in the philosophy, the level to talk. And what that means? That means a lot of things is a very detailed, concrete things we have to solve. But from the college, from the university, what we can do, we only can make more communications, more understanding. So that's what we can do. And we can not only say, oh, we have one solution or another solution, but for the university, we cannot implement that solution or implement that as a plan. So we can do only not is the teaching and communicate. So the first thing I want to say. The second, today is both sides professors, and for our side, not like on the NYU Shanghai is more the majors. For us, only like one major. But for Tsinghua, we have like over 50 majors, and the different field. They have a different language, like machinery department, like double E departments, and others, and they can talk each other, use their common language, like the question mentioned. So there is a bridge. We can find the useful bridge. So that useful bridge is from academia field. Is there's a field language, like medical issues. We have a medical school, we have pharmaceutical schools, and they can talk to anyone in the US, any pharmaceutical schools, any medical schools use their own the academic special languages, and make their both understand each other, like Schwarzman College and NYU and NYU Shanghai and Johns Hopkins and Duke and all the schools we can talk, because we have common interests and common things to understand. So
thank you, David. Jeff, any comments from you?
Yes, I would just agree with David. I think part of what has defined universities since the University of Bologna was established almost 1,000 years ago has been a certain kind of culture which is embedded in a larger society, and it's a culture of sympathetic engagement with disagreement. It's a culture of open-mindedness, outreach, and acceptance of a way of exploring the world together through respectful disagreement. And that has carried forward, and it unites all of our universities. It unites Schwarzman College and Tsinghua and DKU and Hopkins Nanjing and all of the others. We are now embedded in a world which has been redefined by technology and social media, and there are incentives that are created where there are financial incentives to nurture outrage and to encourage people to see something and get angry and to respond with a boycott. And we're seeing boycotts everywhere. In the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, we have companies that are facing boycotts from both sides at the same time. And universities are not boycott institutions. That's not what we're about. And I think actually in this particular moment, which I don't think is in a large sense, this sort of boycott culture is sustainable. I think universities can be helpful as models of a different way of handling disagreement, difference in perspective. We are against this idea of decoupling. We are about engagement and cooperation and competition and sometimes argument, but always in a way that takes as a founding principle the fact that we share a planet and we need each other.
Well, that's great. That's a great message to end our program today. I'd like to thank Jeff and David for sharing their fascinating insights as pioneers in providing international higher education to students in China. I wish both of you all the best as you continue your very important journey here in China. Also, thank all of you, our audience, our viewers, for joining our webinar today. We hope you enjoy the program, and we look forward to continue our virtual series in the near future. Good night and good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Eric.
Stay on
Thanks,
campus.
everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. See you.
See you, David.
See you soon. Bye-bye.